Most women believe men fall in love because of grand gestures, chemistry, or intense passion. But love rarely grows from intensity alone. It grows from moments, small, almost invisible moments, where he feels something shift inside him. And often that shift happens through touch, not dramatic, cinematic touch, not seduction, but intentional, emotionally intelligent contact that makes him feel seen, safe, and connected. When touch is used with awareness, it becomes more than physical contact, it becomes emotional communication. The right touch at the right time can lower his guard, build trust, and create attachment without you ever having to say a word. Today, I want to share 7 specific touches that don't just create attraction, they build emotional depth. These are subtle, powerful, and when done naturally, they can completely change how he feels about you. The first touch is the supportive arm squeeze. When he shares something stressful, challenging, or important, lightly squeezing his arm while maintaining eye contact tells him, "I'm here." It's grounding. It communicates partnership. And men bond deeply with women who feel like allies, not critics. The second touch is the playful shoulder tap during laughter. Shared laughter builds connection, but adding brief physical contact during that moment intensifies it. It anchors joy to your presence. He begins associating you with emotional relief and happiness. The third touch is the slow handhold initiated by you. When you gently reach for his hand, especially in public, it signals pride and choice. Men fall deeply when they feel chosen, not chased. A calm, steady handhold says, "I want to be here with you." The fourth touch is the reassuring hand on his chest. When he's opening up or expressing something vulnerable, placing your hand lightly over his heart area creates a powerful emotional bridge. It's intimate without being sexual. It tells him he's safe to be honest. The fifth touch is the goodbye pause hug. Not rushed, not distracted. A hug where you linger for just a second longer than usual. That extra second creates warmth and longing. It leaves an emotional echo after you walk away. The sixth touch is the gentle face touch. Brushing his cheek lightly when you're close, especially during a sincere moment, activates tenderness. It softens him. It invites closeness without pressure. And the seventh touch is the spontaneous back touch in passing. When you walk by and lightly run your hand across his back, it communicates comfort and familiarity. It feels natural, effortless, and men crave that kind of ease. None of these touches are dramatic. None are manipulative. They are subtle signals of connection, warmth, and emotional presence. And when a man consistently feels calm, appreciated, and emotionally safe around you, that's when attraction deepens into love. Most women assume that physical touch alone is what makes a man fall in love. But in reality, touch without emotional safety often feels empty or even off-putting. Emotional safety is the invisible foundation beneath every meaningful relationship. When a man experiences touch in a way that communicates safety, respect, and acceptance, he is far more likely to open up, trust, and eventually fall deeply in love. This is because men, like women, are wired to respond to cues that signal emotional security. A touch that feels threatening, rushed, or self-serving creates tension and resistance. But a touch that is gentle, timely, and paired with understanding communicates, "You can be yourself around me. You don't have to hide or perform." It's this underlying sense of safety that turns ordinary physical contact into an emotionally transformative experience. Creating emotional safety starts long before any touch happens. It begins with presence and attention. When a man is speaking, truly listening to him, making eye contact, nodding, responding thoughtfully, signals that you are not just physically present, but emotionally invested. Touch becomes the natural extension of this presence. A light brush on the arm while he's sharing a story, or a brief hand on the shoulder during a vulnerable moment, carries far more meaning because it is anchored in genuine attention and care. It says without words that you understand him and that he is valued. Another key aspect of emotional safety is consistency. Men are particularly sensitive to mixed signals. If one moment your touch feels warm and reassuring, and the next moment distant or dismissive, it creates confusion and anxiety. But when your touch consistently communicates support and understanding, it cultivates trust over time. He begins to associate your presence with comfort, reliability, and emotional refuge. This association is powerful because it shifts his nervous system into a state of relaxation when he's around you. Relaxation, in turn, allows vulnerability, and vulnerability is the gateway to love. It's important to remember that emotional safety is not the same as indulgence. It doesn't mean agreeing with everything he says or letting him off the hook for inappropriate behavior. Rather, it's about creating a space where he can express himself without fear of judgment or ridicule. Touch plays a subtle but crucial role here. A supportive arm squeeze when he's stressed, a reassuring hand on the back during a moment of tension, or a lingering hug after a long day communicates understanding, patience, and presence. These touches signal that you are not a threat, that your intention is connection, not control or manipulation. The timing of touch is equally important in establishing emotional safety. A touch delivered at the wrong moment can feel intrusive, while the same touch delivered at the right moment can feel transformative. Emotional safety often comes from attuning to his emotional state and responding in a way that meets him where he is. For instance, a gentle hand on his shoulder when he's celebrating a small victory conveys pride and joy, while the same hand during a moment of stress conveys support and reassurance. The context and intention behind the touch communicate far more than the physical sensation itself. Subtlety is another essential element. Emotional safety thrives on touches that feel natural, effortless, and unforced. Overly dramatic gestures or physicality that seeks to impress can actually undermine the sense of safety, making him feel objectified or pressured. In contrast, a light intentional touch paired with a smile, a knowing glance, or a nod of understanding creates a feeling of warmth and intimacy. It's these small, consistent touches that gradually build an invisible bond of trust and connection. Emotional safety through touch also relies on authenticity. Men are highly attuned to whether your touch is genuine or performative. If you reach out physically without genuine warmth, he will likely sense it on a subconscious level, which can create distance rather than closeness. But when your touch comes from a place of true care, empathy, and presence, it resonates on a deep emotional level. It communicates that you see him, understand him, and are willing to meet him emotionally, and this is what lays the groundwork for a man to truly fall in love. In essence, emotional safety is the hidden catalyst behind every touch that inspires attachment. Physical gestures alone do not make a man fall in love, but when those gestures are rooted in genuine care, presence, consistency, timing, subtlety, and authenticity, they become transformative. A touch that communicates emotional safety does more than convey warmth. It invites him to be seen, heard, and understood. And when a man feels that kind of safety with a woman, he not only responds with affection, but begins to develop the deep emotional bond that underpins lasting love. Touch is far more than a physical action. It is a form of communication, a language in itself that speaks directly to the emotions. Many women mistakenly believe that touch is primarily a tool for seduction, a way to spark desire or escalate intimacy. While physical attraction plays a role in connection, the most profound touches are never about seduction. They are about communication. Every time you touch a man with intention, you are sending a silent message about your feelings, your attentiveness, and your emotional availability. Subtlety and awareness are more powerful than dramatic gestures because men are wired to respond to authenticity and emotional clarity rather than theatrics. A touch can say, "I see you, I appreciate you," or "I'm here for you" without a single word being spoken. Understanding this distinction transforms touch from a simple act into a powerful tool for deepening emotional attachment. When you use touch as a communication tool, the focus shifts from what you want him to feel to what you want to convey. For example, a gentle brush of his hand while laughing together does not merely create a moment of physical closeness. It communicates warmth, shared joy, and presence. Similarly, a brief hand on his shoulder when he is explaining something important signals attentiveness and support. These are not overtly sexual gestures, but they resonate far more profoundly because they are tied to emotional content. A man remembers how a touch made him feel more than the physical sensation itself. When you consistently pair touch with empathy, understanding, or encouragement, it sends a clear message. Being with you is safe, pleasant, and meaningful. Intentionality is the cornerstone of communication through touch. Random or absent-minded contact can feel meaningless or even intrusive, but a touch that is deliberate and emotionally attuned carries impact. For instance, lightly placing your hand on his arm while he shares a challenge signals presence and reassurance. The subtle pressure, the timing, and the context all combine to communicate that you are emotionally invested in the moment. Men are highly sensitive to these nuances, often picking up on signals that they themselves may not fully articulate. Even a small gesture, repeated consistently, can become a powerful emotional anchor. The difference between communication and seduction in touch is also a matter of pressure and intensity. Seductive touches often carry a sense of urgency, expectation, or outcome. They are designed to elicit desire or reaction. In contrast, communicative touches are outcome-free. They are offered without expectation, without a hidden agenda, and without the pressure to escalate intimacy. This creates an atmosphere in which a man feels relaxed and emotionally open. When he perceives that your touch is a reflection of care rather than a tool to manipulate desire, it fosters trust and encourages emotional vulnerability. Over time, this vulnerability deepens his attachment, creating the foundation for genuine love. Consistency and repetition amplify the communicative power of touch. One intentional gesture can create a moment of warmth, but repeated gestures establish a pattern that signals reliability and emotional availability. A man begins to associate certain touches with emotional safety, shared joy, or reassurance, and these associations strengthen his emotional bond. For instance, a casual hand on his back as you walk past, a brief arm squeeze during conversation, or a supportive touch when he is stressed may seem small individually, but together they form a subtle language that speaks volumes. The cumulative effect of these gestures communicates attentiveness, care, and presence far more than words alone ever could. Timing is equally critical in using touch to communicate. The same gesture can be experienced as neutral or transformative depending on the moment. A reassuring hand on the shoulder during a moment of stress or vulnerability carries emotional weight, whereas the same touch in a casual, neutral context may go unnoticed. Emotional attunement requires paying attention to his state and responding accordingly. Touch becomes a form of dialogue. You respond to his cues, and in doing so, you validate his feelings and experiences. Men often remember these moments not for the physical contact itself, but for the emotional resonance that accompanies it. Another crucial element is authenticity. Men are remarkably sensitive to the energy behind a touch. A gesture that is mechanical or forced fails to communicate effectively and can even create discomfort. In contrast, a touch rooted in genuine care and attention conveys sincerity, warmth, and emotional availability. This authenticity ensures that your touch is perceived as a true message rather than a tactic. The combination of timing, intention, and authenticity makes your touch speak directly to his emotional world, bypassing words and appealing directly to his need for connection. Even subtle everyday touches carry profound communicative power. A hand resting briefly on his arm during conversation, a playful nudge when joking, or a lingering hug at the end of a day all convey a silent message of care, attention, and presence. These touches do not need to be elaborate or sexualized. They need to be meaningful and consistent. When a man experiences these moments repeatedly, he begins to associate your presence with emotional resonance, warmth, and comfort. The body remembers these signals, and over time, the accumulation of such touches deepens attachment, builds trust, and fosters emotional intimacy. In essence, touch is not just a physical tool. It is a language that communicates understanding, care, and presence. When used intentionally, subtly, and authentically, touch conveys messages that words often cannot. Men respond not to the sensation alone, but to the meaning behind it, the emotional signal that says, "You are seen, valued, and understood." Recognizing this transforms touch from a mere act into a powerful form of communication, one that can anchor deep emotional connection and ultimately inspire a man to fall in love. One of the most overlooked aspects of emotional connection is the power of consistency. Attraction can be sparked by a single moment, a playful laugh, or a brief encounter, but love, real, lasting love, grows through repeated patterns of experience. Consistency in touch is a subtle yet profound way to build attachment because it creates predictability and reliability, which are essential for emotional security. When a man experiences consistent, intentional touch from a woman, he begins to associate her presence with comfort, reassurance, and emotional support. Over time, these associations accumulate in his subconscious, creating a sense of safety and deepening his bond. A single supportive gesture might spark a feeling of warmth, but repeated gestures transform that warmth into a stable, dependable emotional connection that feels almost magnetic. Consistency works because humans are wired to respond to patterns. Our brains detect repetition, and our nervous systems learn to anticipate outcomes based on previous experiences. When you repeatedly offer touches that are affectionate, supportive, or reassuring, his body begins to expect positive reinforcement in your presence. A simple hand on the shoulder during a stressful moment, a playful nudge during laughter, or a reassuring arm squeeze during conversation, all repeated over time, signals reliability. Men, like women, crave predictability in emotional responses. Knowing that your touch will convey warmth, presence, and support allows him to relax, lowering his emotional defenses and opening him to vulnerability. Vulnerability is the key to attachment and deep love. Consistency does not mean rigidity or repetition without awareness. The most powerful touches are those that remain contextually relevant and emotionally authentic. It's not about touching him the same way every time, but about creating a pattern of meaningful, emotionally intelligent gestures. For instance, lightly brushing his hand during a moment of shared joy or placing your hand on his back when he is feeling uncertain reinforces connection in a way that feels natural rather than forced. The brain records these patterns as cues of emotional safety, subtly shaping his attachment to you. Over time, he begins to link your presence, your touch, and your energy with comfort and emotional reward. Another reason consistency is so effective is that it signals reliability and trustworthiness. Men, like all humans, instinctively seek partners who provide stability and reassurance. Inconsistent behavior, including inconsistent touch, can create anxiety or confusion, leaving him unsure of how to respond or how you feel. On the other hand, consistent gestures of warmth, care, and presence communicate that your emotional support is dependable. He starts to understand, even subconsciously, that your touch is a reliable source of comfort and connection. This predictability strengthens attachment because it creates a sense of stability in his emotional world, a feeling that is incredibly compelling and comforting. Consistency also amplifies the emotional impact of each individual touch. A single handhold or arm squeeze may be memorable, but when these gestures occur regularly and are paired with moments of emotional presence, they gain exponential weight. The brain remembers repetition as reinforcement, and each touch strengthens the emotional pathway between your presence and his feelings of safety, care, and affection. Over weeks and months, this repeated pattern builds a subtle, powerful emotional bond that can feel stronger than any single dramatic gesture. Men often do not consciously recognize the influence of these consistent touches, but their emotional responses tell the story. They feel drawn, connected, and increasingly attached. It's worth noting that consistency in touch should always be paired with authenticity. Repetitive gestures that feel forced or performative do not build attachment. They can create discomfort or emotional distance. The goal is not to mechanically follow a checklist of gestures, but to integrate touch naturally into interactions in a way that feels sincere and emotionally attuned. When he senses that your touches are genuine, responsive, and emotionally appropriate, the consistency reinforces trust and deepens his emotional bond. The combination of predictability, authenticity, and emotional intelligence makes consistency one of the most potent tools for cultivating love. Consistency in touch works because it integrates with other aspects of emotional connection. Coupled with active listening, presence, empathy, and subtle nonverbal communication, Consistent touch becomes part of a broader pattern that signals you are emotionally available and invested. Men are drawn to women who create an environment where they can feel safe, appreciated, and emotionally understood. Repeated, thoughtful gestures of touch anchor these feelings, making him feel deeply connected, cherished, and ultimately more inclined to fall in love. Consistency transforms touch from a simple physical action into a powerful mechanism for building attachment, fostering trust, and nurturing lasting emotional intimacy. Vulnerability is one of the most powerful catalysts for emotional connection, and when combined with touch, it can create bonds that run far deeper than casual attraction. Many people underestimate the subtle influence that showing vulnerability can have in relationships. Touch alone can spark interest, but it is when touch is paired with authenticity and emotional openness that it becomes transformative. Men are deeply influenced by moments in which a woman allows herself to be emotionally present and unguarded, because it signals trust, sincerity, and a willingness to engage on a deeper level. Vulnerability communicates, often without words, that you are approachable, genuine, and emotionally available. When your touch mirrors or complements this vulnerability, it becomes more than a physical gesture. It becomes an emotional bridge that invites him to step closer and reciprocate. The power of vulnerability lies in its ability to lower barriers. Men, like women, carry defenses that protect them from emotional exposure and potential disappointment. A touch that is paired with emotional honesty has the ability to bypass these defenses, subtly signaling, I am present, I am real, and I am not afraid to connect. For example, a gentle hand on his shoulder while sharing something personal, or a light brush of your hand across his when laughing about a shared memory, conveys openness without pressure. It says, I trust you, and I'm willing to show you who I really am. This combination of touch and vulnerability fosters a unique kind of intimacy that cannot be manufactured through words or gestures alone. Vulnerability also works by creating emotional resonance. When you allow yourself to be genuinely expressive, showing laughter, curiosity, concern, or even uncertainty, your touch becomes a reflection of that emotional state. A reassuring hand on his back during a moment of stress communicates more than empathy. It mirrors your shared human experience, creating a subtle feedback loop of connection. The emotional impact is amplified because men sense when your touch is congruent with your feelings. If your physical gestures align with your emotional state, they carry an authenticity that draws him in. Conversely, touch that is disconnected from your emotions often feels hollow, leaving him unsure of your intentions. Another aspect of vulnerability is timing. Emotional openness becomes most impactful when delivered in moments that matter. Touch during moments of triumph, tension, or shared intimacy can create lasting emotional imprints. For instance, lightly holding his hand when he expresses pride or excitement communicates that you are genuinely invested in his experience. A brief hug after he shares a challenge signals that you are emotionally present for both his highs and lows. These touches become emotionally coded memories in his mind, linking you to feelings of comfort, security, and connection. Vulnerability makes each gesture meaningful, and men naturally respond to that depth. It's also important to understand that vulnerability is not weakness. Many women hesitate to show vulnerability because they fear it will make them appear dependent or fragile. In reality, vulnerability paired with touch communicates strength and authenticity. It demonstrates that you are confident enough to be open, to share your emotions, and to meet someone else on an emotional level. A soft hand on his chest while listening to him share a story, or a gentle brush of your fingers along his arm while laughing together, conveys not only warmth but courage. The courage to be fully present. This type of openness is magnetic because men are drawn to women who can balance strength with emotional depth. Consistency in vulnerability is also crucial. A single moment of openness can be memorable, but repeated patterns of emotionally aligned touch reinforce trust and attachment. Men learn to associate your presence, your gestures, and your touch with safety and authenticity. This consistency communicates that your emotional availability is reliable, creating a sense of stability in the relationship. Over time, these repeated experiences form a subconscious map in his mind, linking your touch to emotional security, shared joy, and meaningful connection. The cumulative effect of this consistent, vulnerable presence can be profoundly transformative. Another layer to consider is subtlety. Vulnerability does not have to be dramatic or verbalized. Often, it is the small, quiet moments that leave the deepest impression. A lingering hand on his arm as you share a private joke, a soft brush of your fingers when guiding him through a conversation, or a slow hug that conveys appreciation without words. All of these are ways to express vulnerability subtly. The understated nature of these touches makes them feel natural and emotionally resonant rather than forced or calculated. Men respond to the authenticity of these small gestures, often more than to grand, theatrical expressions of emotion. Vulnerability combined with touch communicates emotional alignment. It signals that you are not just physically present, but emotionally attuned. Your gestures reflect empathy, understanding, and care. Men are drawn to women who create a space where they feel seen, heard, and valued. And vulnerability is a key driver of that dynamic. Touch becomes the vessel through which your emotional openness is transmitted, bridging the gap between attraction and deep emotional connection. When a man experiences touch that is emotionally aligned and rooted in vulnerability, he feels not just desire, but trust, intimacy, and a profound sense of attachment. In essence, vulnerability amplifies the emotional power of touch. When your gestures are authentic, emotionally attuned, and delivered with care, they transform simple contact into a language of trust and connection. Men respond not to the touch alone, but to the courage, sincerity, and emotional openness behind it. This combination fosters profound intimacy, builds attachment, and lays the groundwork for deep, lasting love. Timing is everything when it comes to creating emotional depth through touch. A gesture that feels neutral in one moment can feel transformative in another, depending entirely on context, mood, and emotional state. Men are highly sensitive to timing, even if they are not consciously aware of it. A well-timed touch can create a sense of connection, warmth, and understanding that lingers long after the physical contact has ended. Conversely, a touch that comes too early, too late, or during an inappropriate moment can feel awkward, intrusive, or even off-putting. Learning to attune to his emotional cues and respond with the right gesture at the right moment is one of the most subtle yet powerful ways to deepen his feelings for you. Understanding timing begins with awareness. Emotional timing is about observing the flow of conversation, his body language, and the context of the interaction. For example, placing a supportive hand on his arm while he is sharing something personal communicates empathy and understanding, but doing the same gesture when he is distracted or overwhelmed might go unnoticed or even feel intrusive. Timing is about meeting him where he is emotionally, not where you wish he were. It is about creating resonance rather than forcing a connection. When touch aligns with the emotional rhythm of the moment, it carries far more weight than words or even grand gestures. Timing also amplifies emotional resonance. Touch during moments of heightened emotion, laughter, vulnerability, pride, or stress anchors those feelings to your presence. A playful nudge during shared laughter can make the memory of joy feel more vivid and intimate. A gentle hand on his shoulder during a moment of tension communicates calm, support, and understanding. Men do not always articulate these feelings consciously, but their nervous systems register and respond to them. Each touch, delivered at the right moment, becomes part of an emotional map in his mind, associating you with positive and meaningful experiences. Over time, these moments create a subconscious bond that fosters attachment and intimacy. Intentionality is key to effective timing. A touch delivered with awareness of the moment's emotional weight communicates more than the touch itself. When you place your hand lightly on his back as he celebrates a small victory or linger for a moment during a hug after a challenging conversation, you are sending a silent message. I am present with you in this moment, with you fully. This communicates alignment and attentiveness, showing that you are not only physically present, but emotionally engaged. Men respond to this alignment because it signals reliability, care, and understanding. Timing also interacts with subtlety. A touch that is brief but perfectly timed can have far more impact than prolonged or exaggerated contact. It's the small, intentional gestures that often leave the strongest imprint. A fleeting brush of your hand while walking past, a momentary hand on his arm during laughter, or a brief squeeze during a serious conversation can all create emotional signals that feel natural, effortless, and meaningful. The understated nature of these gestures allows them to resonate more deeply than overt, dramatic expressions that may feel forced or manipulative. Emotional timing also plays a role in creating anticipation and desire. Men respond to moments that feel spontaneous yet appropriate, which signals attentiveness and engagement. A well-timed touch can ignite curiosity and emotional responsiveness, while poorly timed or overused touches can create fatigue or detachment. This balance is critical. The same gesture can either deepen attachment or diminish it, depending on the context in which it occurs. Timing ensures that each touch has purpose and impact, enhancing the overall emotional connection. Another important aspect of timing is the cumulative effect. While one perfectly timed gesture can be memorable, repeated touches delivered at emotionally resonant moments create patterns that reinforce trust and attachment. A hand on the arm during a shared joke, a gentle squeeze after a stressful moment, or a lingering hug at the right moment builds a subtle language of connection. Over time, these patterns form a strong emotional foundation. Men begin to associate your presence, your touch, and your attentiveness with feelings of safety, joy, and comfort, which strengthens attachment and fosters deeper emotional intimacy. Timing requires attunement to his individual rhythm and personality. Every man responds differently to physical gestures, emotional cues, and moments of intimacy. Some may respond more strongly to playful touches, while others feel a deeper connection through supportive or reassuring gestures. Observing and understanding his unique patterns allows you to time your touch in a way that maximizes emotional impact. This attentiveness communicates not only care, but a willingness to meet him where he is emotionally, which is one of the most powerful drivers of emotional attachment. In essence, timing transforms touch from a simple physical gesture into an emotionally charged communication. The right touch at the right moment communicates understanding, empathy, presence, and care in a way that words alone cannot. Men respond not only to the touch itself, but to the context, intention, and emotional alignment behind it. By mastering timing, you create moments that linger in his mind and heart, building a foundation of trust, intimacy, and deep emotional connection that can ultimately inspire lasting love. In the end, creating a man's deep love is never about grand gestures, dramatic seduction, or trying to control his feelings. It's about presence, awareness, and emotional intelligence expressed through touch. Each gesture, whether a supportive squeeze, a playful nudge, a gentle handhold, or a lingering hug, becomes meaningful when it is intentional, authentic, and attuned to his emotional state. When touch is paired with emotional safety, consistency, vulnerability, timing, and genuine care, it transcends the physical and speaks directly to his heart. These subtle signals communicate trust, warmth, and connection, building a foundation of attachment that grows over time. The magic is in the small, thoughtful moments repeated naturally, creating patterns that make him feel seen, understood, and cherished. When a man consistently experiences this kind of emotionally intelligent touch, attraction deepens into devotion, closeness turns into love, and connection becomes unshakable.